All right, so now we're going to go ahead and create a worker standing at a bench. So to do that, we need to create a new design. So if we come up here and click the plus button, it'll open up a new design. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a bench. So we're going to have several components in this design. So if we right click on the top level, we can select new component, name it bench. Parent is the top level, looks good. Say OK. And I'm going to go ahead and create the other two components now. So new component F5, so 5th percentile female. Say parent. Looks like this might be going under bench, so I'm going to unselect that and select the top level. Say OK. And then I'm also going to create a new component for M95, so 95th percentile male, and select OK. So you can see there's radio buttons next to each of these components, and by clicking that, you make that the active design. So that's when you're sketching and doing extrudes, that's the design that the component that they'll go under. So to draw the bench, we're going to start by drawing the tabletop. So if we create a sketch, and I'm working under solid this time rather than surface, so just because the table is a fairly simple design. So I'm going to select the horizontal plane, and as before, I'm going to draw a rectangle, hit escape, select a line, draw a diagonal, hit escape, select the line, and rather than right-clicking and selecting, I'm just going to hit X this time because from the last one, we saw that we could use that shortcut key to make it a construction line. So now I'm going to select the origin and shift select the line and go up here to midpoint, and that should center the design on the origin. Now I need to add dimensions. So like before, I'm going to come up here to sketch dimension or just hit D. And this table is supposed to be 200 centimeters wide or 2 meters. So I'm just going to say 2 meters. Scroll out so I can see the whole table by 100 centimeters or 1 meter. So that should give me the tabletop. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. So we can see now I have that shape. So now I'm going to come up here and extrude. I'm going to select the design. And now I have some options in terms of how I want to extrude. So I can start at the profile plane and do one-sided, symmetric. I'm going to go ahead and do symmetric, make the dimension the whole length. And this is supposed to be 5 centimeters thick. So I'm going to just say 50 because it'll default to the 50 millimeter unit, and say OK. All right, so now I need to draw the legs. So there's a couple ways I can do this. I can draw it from the bottom surface and say subtract the thickness of the table off. Or I can select from the top surface and then extrude the legs through the table. And then I can set the leg length, whatever I want the table height to be. So I'm going to go ahead and do that way. So again, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to sketch, selecting the top of the surface. I'm going to draw a rectangle in the corner. And then hit D to dimension it. So these are also supposed to be 5 centimeters. So I'm going to select that one. And now instead of dimensioning this one separately, I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to select these two lines and add a constraint. And I'm going to make them equal. So now when I change this dimension, it should change both of them. And rather than drawing this at each of the corners, I'm going to go ahead and mirror them. So I'm going to take a line, draw it from the midpoint of each side to the origin, and then I'm going to make them construction lines like we did before. So selecting both of them and hitting X. So now if I come up here to these two triangles where it says mirror, I can duplicate the design across a line. So I want to select the four corners here, and then the mirror line I'm going to start with is this one. We can see it draws a rectangle there. I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to repeat that where I'm selecting both of these sections now. And I am not a Fusion 360 expert, or just Fusion now expert. Like, it's not the primary CAD software that I use, so there are often better ways of doing things than what I'm showing you. So now I have four corners with legs. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to finish the sketch. And now I'm going to extrude those. So I'm going to select each of those shapes. And then this is supposed to be 90 centimeters tall. So for the distance, I'm going to say 900. For the operation, we're going to join. And if I look, so these are extruding up, and I want them to extrude in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to throw a minus sign in front of here. And now it should extrude down. Because it's passing through another object, it wants to default to cut. So I can change that to join. And then that looks like a table. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So now we have a table or a bench. I want to position it in the overall design. So to do that, I am going to do another sketch. I'm going to sketch on one of the feet and just draw a line with a midpoint that I can use as a reference. So sketch, line, going from this corner to this corner, hit escape, and then under create, there's a lot more kind of drawing options. I'm going to select point and come down here and just create a point. So this line is not for construction, so I'm going to hit escape, select it, and then hit X to make it a construction line. So that gives me a point that I can use to move the design around. So we have that now. So I am going to come up here to joint. And first I'm going to make the top level active, just to make it a little bit easier. So assembly, I'm going to select this point first, and then up here I'm going to select the origin of the overall design. So that did some wild stuff where it was showing different types of motion, which means under this motion tab, it's probably not a rigid joint. So here we can see it was set to planar, so I want it to be rigid. And one of the other things we can do is we can create an offset if we want, where if we wanted these points to be, a certain distance apart in the X, Y, or Z axis, we could set that here. I'm happy with this being the origin of the overall design, so I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now if we look at the origin of the top level, it's at that point. The order in which you click those points is important. If you try and click the origin first of the overall design and then click that point, doesn't seem to like it for some reason. So just make sure you click the point in the component first before selecting the top level origin. All right, so I think that is the table done. So next we're going to create a person. So to do that, we're going to start with the 95th or the 5th percentile female. So we're going to go and click to make that active. We're going to create a sketch, and I'm going to start with this plane. So to do this, I'm just going to do a line drawing. So I'm going to click at this point, come up, and kind of go up to the shoulder level, and then I'm going to create a line out to the side, which is center line to shoulder. I'm going to hit escape, and like before, I can mirror this. So I'm going to hit mirror, select this line and the mirror line. I'm going to select the body. So now I should end up with a T shape. So now I still need to dimension this. So to dimension it, I can come over here to this reach length calculator where it shows different body proportions. So here we have the stature for 5th percentile female, average female, 95th percentile female, as well as 5th percentile male, average male, and 95th percentile male. So you can see the one that's selected is in red. And the way that this works is they have created averages of different body proportions relative to the person's stature. So here we can see the overall height is represented by 1. So if you multiply the height by 1, you should get the height back. For the center to shoulder distance, it's 0.129 or 12.9% of the overall height. So for the 5th percentile female, this comes out to 194 millimeters. So if we move back over here, I can sketch dimension and set that as 194. Enter. And then if I come back here, this is the floor to shoulder height. So this is 81.8% of the person's height. So 123 centimeters. So if I come back here, I can select this and do 123 centimeters. So that should give me the dimensions that I need for this person. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that sketch. So that gives us the shoulders, but we need arms. So currently there's not a plane to draw the arms on, so I need to create one. So if I come up here under construction, I can do an offset plane. So this allows me to create a plane that's parallel to an existing plane. So I'm going to select this horizontal plane, and rather than setting a distance, I'm going to say to object, and I'm going to select that center point at shoulder height and say OK. And we can see this creates a real tiny plane there. So I'm going to grab the corners of that and just drag it out so it's easier to see. And now I'm going to draw arms on that plane. So come up here to create sketch, select it, select the line, and draw a line there, hit escape, come over here, draw another line. And you can see it snapping to the grid rather than the corner. You can turn that off. I just hit escape again over here if you want, or you can just leave it on because it is helpful sometimes, and then just make sure you make the points coincident. So I'm going to select that shoulder joint and the base of the arm, make it coincident, and then come over here and do the same thing. So now those joints are in the same location. And again, I need to set the length of these. So if I come back to this chart, you can see there are individual distances for kind of each joint of the arm, or it calculates the shoulder to different types of grips. So for this, we're just going to do shoulder to touch. So this is 44.1% of the overall height, which comes out to 66.3 centimeters. So I'm going to come back over, and I'm just going to round to the nearest millimeter. So do dimensions, 663, hit enter, scroll out, and then I'm going to hit escape, select both arms, and make them equal. So that should finish this sketch up. So now we have a person standing with both arms extended out. So now we need to kind of see where these arms can reach. So to do that, we're going to go back to surface, and we're going to create a shell that is at the reach limits of the person. Again, there's not a plane to draw this on. So if we come up here, we can create an offset plane again. This time I'm going to select the sagittal plane, or kind of the center line plane. And then I'm going to do to object again, and I'm going to select this point at the shoulder. Hit OK. Again, we can see this created super tiny plane here. So again, I'm going to drag it to make it more visible. All right. So now I can draw on that plane, and we're going to use a revolve this time, which basically takes the pattern that you draw and it just rotates it about an axis. So I'm going to come down here to create. I'm going to create an arc, and I'm going to do a center point arc. So for this, we define the center, and then 2 points on the arc distance. I could have draw it right at those points, but from what we saw previously with the snap, unless you turn that off, it's going to want to snap to the grid. So I'm going to hit escape, and then again go and make these coincidence to the point I want them to. So the center is going to be at the shoulder. We're going to have one at the hand, and then one on the body of the person. So that gives us the profile shape that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and finish sketch. And now I'm going to come up here and revolve. So to do that, it's going to ask me to select a profile. So I'm going to select that line we just drew. And for the axis, I want to revolve it around the arm axis. We're 360 degrees. Yep. One-sided and a new body. All that looks good. So I'm going to select OK. And now that's hidden the arm sketch that we previously had. So I'm going to come down here, expand out the 5th percentile female, expand out sketches, and whenever we kind of use a sketch to create a feature, it's going to hide it. So I'm just going to unhide those arms so we can see them again. One of the other nice things you can do is rename sketches so it's obvious what they are. So if I right click on sketch 1, I can come down and rename it and say torso and arm and shoulders. Call this one arms. Call this one reach profile. So that way it's just easier to come back and reference exactly what everything is. All right, so next up, we want to see where the right arm is as well. So I could either repeat this process at the right arm, creating the plane, the sketch profile, and revolve, or kind of like before, I can mirror this. So if I come back up here under create, I can mirror and select the object. So I'm going to select that, the mirror plane. For this one, I am going to, let's see, so if I show these, I'm going to select the YZ plane. So that's going to mirror it. And because we're making the assumption that the person's symmetric, it'll mirror it for both sides. Now I have some options. I can join or create a new body. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and create a new body, just so these are independent. And I'm going to say OK. So that gives us the reach profiles for the left and the right arm. So now we need to go ahead and locate this person in the overall design. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and hide the bench to make it a little bit easier to set. I'm going to make the top level active. And then as before, I'm going to come up here to a symbol. I'm going to select the point that I want to start with on the design. So I've selected the foot on the 5th percentile female. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to select the origin for this. So that wanted to rotate it. So not exactly what I was going for. So let's see if we can fix this. So it looks like the angle change is rotating at about that axis. So that's not exactly what I want. And flipping it just kind of moves it. So I need to see if I can change what I'm selecting to make it better. So I'm going to unselect that. I'm going to hide the origin for the overall design. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the y-axis. No, doesn't like that. I'm going to select the origin for this design, hide that, show the origin for this design, select it. Okay, it liked that much better than selecting the point. And that's something you'll run into a lot of times with CAD softwares is the solver is going to try and do what it thinks you're asking of it, but sometimes you just kind of need to change specifically what you're asking for to get it to understand what you want. So that seems like that worked. This time I do want to create an offset, so I want to create a little bit of space for the person because most of us are not infinitesimally thin, so we need some sort of belly space. So I need to move the person back along the y-axis. So I am going to give 10 centimeters of belly space. So 100 millimeters, say OK. And that looks like it moved it forward. So if I come down here, we have the history of all the different features we've created. So I'm going to select the joint we just did, right click and edit the joint. And I'm just going to switch the direction on this. So now the person should be 10 centimeters back from the table. And I'm going to say OK. Make the bench visible again. And that looks like what we're going for. So now we'd like to create different lines to show where the person can reach on the table, allowing us to create measurements that can make it easier to decide where we want to place parts. So to do that, we're going to come down, and I'm going to make 5th percentile female active. And I'm going to start by creating the reach limits on, I'm going to start with the vertical plane because I think that'll be simpler. So if I select down here in construction, I have plane 1. I'm going to rename that to shoulder height. And this one I'm going to rename to left shoulder, and this is sagittal. I don't remember if that's how you spell sagittal, but we're going to go with it for now for the sake of brevity. So on that left shoulder sagittal, I'm going to create a sketch. And then within that sketch, I can come down and I can say, under this project include, there's this intersect feature. So I can select the geometry I want to show intersecting with that plane, and then just hit OK. And you can see this draws a line where that intersection happens. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. So now if I hide the bodies, it's an interesting way of phrasing that. But you can see when we're creating drawings now, you can see where that shell is in the vertical plane without having it being blocked by those shell bodies. So now I want to do that same thing, but on the table's surface. So if I do the same thing where I select the tabletop, create a sketch, and now go back and do the intersect feature for the geometries, I'm going to select both of the shells, say OK, and that you can see shows where the touch reach intersects with the table. I'm going to draw a couple of points now that'll help make measurements later on. So again, coming to create and point, I'm going to create points where those lines intersect with the table. So if I measure between these 2 points, that gives me the overall lateral distance, or the max distance the person can touch. If I measure the distance between these 2 points, that gives me kind of the area where the person can touch with both hands at the same time. So another point of interest is going to be kind of this point where the max reach with both hands, and then the center point here, which is going to be the max reach with an individual hand. There we go. So I think those are all the points that will be helpful for creating the measurements. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. I'm not going to do the 95th percentile male. I'll leave that to you. You'll follow the same procedures. You'll just use different measurements for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and rename these sketches. So this one is vert reach, and this one is bench reach. I'm going to say limit just to make it a little bit more clear. So vertical reach distance and bench reach distance. And I think that looks good for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and Control S to save the design. Again, following convention, uni. Currently, this is exercise 1-1. Again, follow whatever assignment this ends up being when you're doing it. And we're going to say this is workers. I'm going to say save. And that should give me the overall design. All right. From there, again, to upload it to Canvas, you can right-click on the top level and go to Export to export it. Yeah, so I think that's it for now. In the next one, we'll be talking about how to create a drawing based off of this.